Pilot say what?
Fool me once. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
that was good. So we are on the 22nd episode of Pilots Say What, where we hear what pilots have to say. And we have Evan Christner joining us once again. This is probably one of the first times we've repeated having anyone, actually. But thank you for joining us once more. We really appreciated having the first time. And I think we have a great episode ahead of us because we'll be talking a little bit about, a little bit more about being a CFI. I mean, you're at least another month in
Yeah,
now.
yep.
And then since we've already kind of gotten to know you in the past, I kind of want to fire a bunch of questions at you
Yeah,
and see
absolutely.
how much we can really, how much information we can really get out of you, to be
Okay.
honest. So we're gonna treat this like an insightful tips and tricks sort of episode. But of course, we'll go with the flow. If you guys have listened to the podcast before, or you've watched any of these episodes here on YouTube, then you know my name is Zachary. And I'm gonna hand it over to you to give yourself a brief introduction, anyways, just to say who you are in case they
Okay.
didn't see the last episode.
Hello again. My name is Evan Christner. I'm a CFI with Thrust Flight. I've been with the company for a few months now, and it's been about a month since we had our last interview, so that's why I said fool me once.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Well, again, I appreciate you for joining us.
Yeah,
You've
happy to
been a
be here.
CFI. It's been another month now. What is it, about
Yes.
4 months in?
Yeah, I believe so. It's been about 4 months in now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Anything drastic changed? Did you try anything new since last time?
No, I've actually been private checked out recently. I started moving over to private students and
Okay.
just starting to get those like true 0 time students coming in. So it's pretty exciting now. So I get to hopefully try and build good habits from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting to see some of those early light bulbs go off,
Yeah.
it seems like.
Oh yeah.
What were you before they had you like very heavily in ground training? Like, I mean, what was going on before?
I did a little bit of ground beforehand. I did an instrument ground classes, but primarily I had instrument students
Oh,
to
instrument.
start. So, yeah,
Okay.
it was nice and procedural. But
Okay.
and I had a little bit of a commercial sprinkled in there as well.
Yeah.
But then after I got private checked out, it's a nice little shift over to private students.
Yeah.
So
Do you find that to be a little more challenging?
there's definitely more unique challenges
Hmm.
about it. But I mean, you got to be a little bit more on your toes.
Okay.
But
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot more nuances, probably.
well, maybe a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, getting those students from that 0 time and trying to get them to learn how the plane operates or how the plane works, and then
Yeah.
aerodynamics in general and things like that, and like
Yeah.
building checklist usage and
Mm.
things like that. So
Yeah, it's good to know that your CFI journey is going well. I know that last time we talked a little bit about what it was like to get started. One of the questions I do have for you is, maybe off the top of your head, I have six, but it didn't have to be six. What's maybe the six or so hardest parts of becoming a CFI so far?
6
That
hardest
you,
parts of becoming a
yeah,
CFI.
like let's say that there's someone listening and they're approaching becoming a CFI or something like that. Maybe these are heads up kind of pointers.
I'll try to think of 6,
Yeah,
but
it didn't have to necessarily be six, but for some reason I wrote six. So
so I guess when you're becoming a CFI, I would say one of the more difficult things is if you don't already have experience in instruction,
Mhm,
is the FOIs. So the FOIs can be a bit of a hefty beast sometimes,
mhm,
and it's not for everyone.
And by
Some
FOI,
people.
just so I
Oh, sorry, fundamentals of instruction.
I just want
Yeah,
to make sure. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
fundamentals of instruction. So that can be a bit of a beast for some people. So it's a good amount of time trying to really learn all of the fundamentals of instruction, how
Hmm.
students learn, and just going through all of that. Again, it starts out with a lot of rote memorization, and then you've got to start linking things together and beginning to understand, like, oh well, defense mechanisms. I was this, and this
Hmm.
when I was training, and then you start to apply things and correlate them,
Yeah,
and then you get that higher level understanding. So that's one of the more challenging things of becoming a CFI is just learning those fundamentals of
yeah.
instruction. Definitely, I'd say it probably takes top 5 for sure.
Really? Okay, that's
Yeah.
good then. I'll
Let's
mark that
see.
one down so I can talk about it later.
Jumping into a new rating can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes
Hmm.
because if you've been doing the same rating, like training students on the same rating for a while now, you might get a little bit rusty on the other things, or maybe you just haven't taught any new students
Mm.
on those new ratings. So jumping into a new rating to train could be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. But we have here at Thrust we have course guides for everyone, so
Hmm.
we got something that you can readily or have readily available to reference.
Is that
Um,
sort of like a curriculum for each rating kind of thing? Is
Sort
you say
of,
course guide? Yeah.
sort of, yeah. It's gonna have the curriculum details in there, but it's also gonna give instructors like best practices
Okay.
for certain flight lessons and how you want to do things,
Mm.
or how you want to plan things out for the course. Just
Hmm.
give that student that nice, easy, smooth flow. Sometimes one of the challenges that for a new CFI is there might be times where a student just has a hard time grasping a concept. So
Mm-hmm.
you've got to go into that. You might have to go into that blocked practice, which is one of those fundamentals of instruction.
Yeah.
You might have to go into that blocked practice and just do it over and over and over again. So
Yeah.
that's one of those things where it's maybe a student just isn't getting their short field landing. So you just have to try
Mm.
and coach them through their energy management, coming in for their short field landing, making sure they're within the standards. And sometimes you just have to do it over and over and over again.
Right. Sometimes there's a
So
specific thing and that you realize the student just needs a little extra time on,
yeah,
right?
they just need a little bit extra time, and
Yeah.
it's totally normal. It happens.
Yeah.
It's totally normal. But
Right. But being able to crack down on those and get
yeah,
into the details and really help someone's behavior change a little bit. But
yeah,
honestly, I mean, unless you got more off the top of your head, 3 is totally good for me. I like
yeah.
lists of
Okay,
threes, to be honest.
I'm fine
And
with
I
three.
think those
Just
3 go good together. But also because since you mentioned the short field landings, I think that's something I wrote down. Or yeah, or is there some things that you can foresee being common difficulties?
realistically speaking, I'd say the two most common errors for the short field landing is where the student goes long, or the student tries to
Mm-hmm.
like put the plane down on the spot.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where both of my private students, they had tried to put the plane down on the spot one time. So it's one of those things where it's let's put a stop to that.
Yeah.
If the plane's got energy, don't put it down. You want
Okay.
to let it ride it out. If you're going to go long, go long. But the other error is students go long on
Yeah,
the short
exactly.
field
A
landing.
little too
So
long, right?
it's one of those things where, okay, well, let's try coming into ground effect a little bit sooner. Well, let's try coming in a little bit slower next time.
Mm.
Things like that. I guess I could add one more thing.
Yes,
Though.
yes.
Picking the wrong point to come in for your ground effect when you
Mm.
start to round out. If you pick a point too far, then again you're going to go long.
Mhm.
If you pick a point too close and then you take out the throttle to just kind of float it out,
Yeah.
again you might end up short. So that's another one of those things where I guess if the students pick the wrong point to come down, or that aiming point,
Right.
so they got to make sure they're picking the right aiming point, coming in consistently at the same speed, same aiming point, be able to float it out and hit down on that same mark every single time.
Is there something that makes them choose the wrong aiming point? I'm curious. Like,
Um,
what goes into that? It's a psychological thing.
I
Is it
would say
not?
starting out, it's just that they don't have a good reference of what they
Okay.
should pick.
Okay.
So that's where our job comes in. We should try and give them a good reference.
Okay.
So
That's good. Can I ask you then, maybe, and these are all like really basic questions I feel like
yeah,
right
yeah.
now, but I think there are some somewhat frequently asked questions. So when it comes to a discovery flight, what really takes place during a discovery flight, and why would you say it's important?
So I haven't done a discovery flight
Mhm.
yet, or like I haven't
You
performed one.
Right, you took
Right.
one here
Yeah, I
with
took
us, right?
one, but I
Yeah.
haven't like done a disco
Uh-huh.
with like a customer.
Okay.
So I would imagine it's just some basic maneuvers,
Mhm.
where they nothing too crazy, not pulling any heavy G's, but just let the person get used to the plane, get a feel for it, turning to some different headings, maybe climbing and descending a little bit, just
Mhm.
getting used to the plane and how
Yeah.
it feels overall, and see how they like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then for you, was there anything specific that you remember that stands out from your discovery flight, or that you can recall now? Like, oh, that's what he was doing.
I mean, for me, it
Yeah.
was. I mean, I got to do steep turns.
Oh yeah, that's
So,
really yeah, that's fun.
I wanted to jump right into it.
Yeah. So you got
it's
to kind of do that,
yeah.
right? I mean, you had someone there to help you.
Yeah,
That's
no,
good.
it's exactly.
Yeah.
I had someone there to help me. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I got a little bit lucky with my discovery flight. I got to
Yeah.
do a lot on it.
Yeah, that's
But
good.
um
Well,
yeah, that's
that's enough for me to know because that sounds exciting. Is that what got you hooked?
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
and we did a few stalls as well, so that was
Yeah.
pretty fun.
Okay, and would you say that there's a certain reason why maybe it's important to do a discovery flight if you're at all interested in aviation?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, if you're at all interested in aviation, that's your first step into aviation to see if you really like it or not. But at the same time, if you end up not liking the discovery flight, that may not be
Mm,
the be all end all for you. I mean, you can still jump in again, um,
yeah,
and just do a second discovery flight. I mean, it's totally possible. You can do a second one,
interesting. Yeah.
and because maybe that first one you had bad conditions that day, maybe it
Yeah.
was really rough that day. But wait a little bit for a better day and give it another shot. Honestly,
I like that.
yeah,
That's a good. No, that's good. I like that because
yeah. 'Cause
there's times when you try something and it just didn't hit right the
yeah,
first
it may
time,
not
right?
hit
Yeah,
quite right the first time,
yeah,
and that second time it was just awesome. I mean, I was lucky. For me, it was the first time. It was the very first time from the get go. But yeah,
yeah.
like if you feel like it's the first time could have been a little bit better, or maybe you're missing something, then try it again one more time, see if you like it again,
Yeah.
and maybe after the second time it's not for you.
Then
But
then you decide.
yeah,
It doesn't seem well. Then I guess I'm talking to people who chose to move forward with their
right,
aviation
yeah.
journey, but it seems like people do discovery flights and they're like, yeah, that's for me.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's usually how it sounds like. I mean, I enjoyed the my first flight. I really did. It
Oh
wasn't
yeah,
quite a discovery flight, but I enjoyed the first one I had.
that's good.
Okay, so you're in your private. I mean, you're working with a lot more with private students after having had worked a lot with the instrument and
Mhm.
the occasional
Yeah.
commercial. Do as a CFI, and you're still kind of gaining your momentum as a CFI.
Mhm.
What's next in terms of what you're probably going to be working on and teaching?
Well, I don't want to put the cart before the horse,
Right.
but I mean, I would like to expand the repertoire to just be able to teach any student at any level.
Yeah.
So again, I started with instrument, and I'm moving over to private, then like to expand back into getting more commercial students and maybe hopefully CFI in the future as well.
Yeah.
But just want to expand it all.
Yeah.
I just want to cover everything, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I
I just
totally
like to be able to
understand.
cover everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think the next step right now is just focusing on my current students right now
Yeah.
and making sure that they're able to get through everything quickly and painlessly.
No, absolutely. And I mean, it sounds like I, I mean, I'm only imagining things, but it sounds like probably teaching private students are probably one of the more tough tasks as a CFI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be it
Yeah.
can be, but I mean, it's I like the challenge. I
Yeah.
like the challenge, so
Yeah.
it's a
Well,
lot of fun in my opinion.
well, we've already gotten pretty far into the episode. I'll probably give you a couple more of those questions, see what I can get out of
Okay,
you.
okay.
We'll keep the best.
Let's see what we got.
uh,
Let's see what we got.
okay, so number one mistake when practicing engine failures. What is that with students?
Oh, geez, the number one mistake.
Uh-huh.
I've only had a few students so far where we practice engine
Okay.
failures. So my number one mistake so far is
Mhm.
not doing all of the checklist. I
Mhm.
can get my students to do the airspeed just fine, and I
Uh-huh.
can get them the best place to land just fine as well. But
Yeah.
sometimes they forget those checklist items,
Yeah.
and sometimes they forget one or two items on the checklist when
Uh-huh.
they're doing those engine failures. So if I notice that they're forgetting one or two items on those checklists, usually if they do end up remembering it, I'm going to make that the thing that recovers the engine.
Okay.
So say one of my students forgot to turn on the fuel pump, or say they forgot to switch to the fullest tank, or just switch to the other tank.
Yeah.
As soon as they switch to the other tank, then oh, your engine's back. Looks like there was a problem with the one of the fuel tanks.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Okay.
Yeah. You kind of
But,
like make them put it together.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. So I want to make sure they're not forgetting anything.
Uh-huh.
But then sometimes, I mean, obviously, we're going to make sure that they know, oh, well, nothing works, so now we need to figure out what we're going to do in terms of best place to land. So,
Mhm.
you see that field right there? That looks pretty good, but there's some power lines there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd say the checklist.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The checklist items are probably my number one right now.
That being said, let's go to the next one. It says 3 things not to miss on a pre-arch. I'm sorry, 3 things not to miss on an Archer pre-flight. What would be something that comes to mind?
Oh man, for me, I would say.
I mean, it sounds like it's all important, but
I mean, it is all important, but
Yeah.
I would definitely say make sure you're inspecting your prop and prop hub.
Mhm.
Make sure you're inspecting your stabilator for that Jesus bolt. And let's say probably checking the fluids as well.
And what are those 3 things stand out to you?
So the fluids, if there's any water or sediment in the bottom of the tank, that's going to lead to an engine failure.
Right.
If you have any cracks in the prop or dings in the prop, that could lead to some structural issues with the prop itself, or issues with the prop hub as well. And then that Jesus bolt is everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've
Exactly.
lost control of the stabilator if you've
Okay.
lost the Jesus bolt. So it's going to be an interesting flight after that.
Right. And so the reason you said those 3 things, generally, like the umbrella there is the
Yeah.
safety, right? I mean,
Yeah.
these are just really demanding of in safety, right?
For fluids, obviously, you have the oil as well. You want to make sure the oil's in relatively good condition, as well as you've got enough oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I mean, because you could have answered like, "Oh, these are the reasons why you would fail," but any of them you may fail.
Yeah,
These things are like, "Oh, you're gonna stay
Yeah.
in the air in the most
I mean,
safe manner."
because with flaps, I mean, yes, flaps are very important.
Uh-huh.
Flaps are very important. They're the lift devices. They let you come in for a more stable approach,
Mhm.
but you don't necessarily need to land with flaps. You can land without flaps. It's totally possible.
Yeah.
But it's and same goes for, not ideal, but same goes for rudder and aileron. You can land without those as well.
Yeah.
Not ideal,
Not
but
ideal,
still
yeah.
possible.
Yeah, exactly. So you're a little more
Yeah.
safe. I got you. At the end of the day, do your whole
Yeah. Oh,
pre-flight
yeah. No,
checklist.
don't skip anything. Be
Yeah,
like, oh, this
right.
is
So
just the
that's-
ailerons. I don't need this. No,
Yeah,
it's like
right.
absolutely check this.
I hear you. Okay, gotcha. But yeah, so I guess I mean we're nearing the end here. I want to ask probably one final question. I see that now you're kind of diving into the private side of your
Mhm.
CFI journey. And then, of course, you were a private before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe pulling on some of your experiences, what are some tips for students that are in their private rating right now?
I mean, the number one is study. I mean,
Yeah.
I studied a lot for private. I
Mhm.
really did, but I would definitely study. We provide a maneuver guide for students on how they should perform these maneuvers. Study that maneuver guide.
What if someone's thinking, "Oh, okay, I hear study." How
No,
do
no,
you
yeah,
drive that home?
you hear study
Yeah.
all the time, and then you are humbled at every single stage check,
Okay.
every single flight. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really study your material. I
Mhm.
mean, you need to be ready as a private student. I think you should be ready to know how you need to set up for a maneuver,
Mhm.
know the standards for the maneuver, and how to perform the maneuver in general.
Yeah.
You need to be able to know all of that immediately. Well, okay, maybe not immediately,
But
but
off the
like
top of your head.
well, yeah, you need to be able to pull it off the top of your head. You need to be able to pull that off the top of your head.
Mhm.
And again, study that maneuver guide. Say, oh, well, I'm doing my power off stall. I've gone to full brake. I've gone to buffet. Whatever the instructor requires.
Mhm.
I need to know full power, bring the nose down, first flap
Mm.
immediately, so on and so forth. I need to be able to know and pull all of those motions out immediately. I know everyone's like study, study, study,
Right.
but you actually need
But
to
it's
know.
actually,
Yeah,
yeah.
you actually need to know this procedure.
Yeah.
It'll help you out
It'll actually
immensely.
help.
Yes, it will
Yeah.
actually help you immensely
Yeah.
if you can list off the standards and how to set up for the maneuver and how to perform the maneuver.
Yeah.
Before your stage checks, as well as just when you're flying with your instructor, things are going to be so much smoother for you.
Okay.
So much smoother for you.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well,
Okay.
my first two private students, I had them study and chair fly the checklist because I wanted them to be able to build their own flow or build the flow for that checklist.
Mm.
That way we could speed up the ground stuff just a little bit quicker. It's like the startup of the plane and the taxiing and whatnot. So we could speed that up just a little bit.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, to make sure that they're comprehensive and making sure they're not missing anything.
Right.
But chair flying those checklists and then studying that maneuver guide. So they're almost there, but I want them to be able to list off how to set up for the maneuver, how to perform the maneuver, and the standards for that maneuver by the time they're done with it.
That's pretty good. Unless you have any other tips for I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of tips, but if there's anything else that comes to mind, I'm very content with even that.
I mean, when you're studying, obviously you want to go down a rabbit hole with everything, but knowing why. Ask why. Well, why are the flaps a high lift device, or why do I need a certain power setting for a certain altitude, certain airspeed for trimming and whatnot? Like, why do I need these setups? Why does this work this way? Knowing why is going to help out a lot to understand aerodynamics, understand the maneuvers, understand everything else.
Did you implement that in any sort of way when you were studying, like the why?
Like I said, there's an extent to which you want to go with it.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, I did do that a lot with a lot of things. I was like, well, okay, well, why does it work like this?
Yeah.
And then once I learned why it worked
At
like
least have
that,
one
then I
layer.
was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then I had a better understanding of it. So
Yeah.
asking why.
Yeah,
Why
absolutely.
is this important? Like, why does it work this way?
Yeah. I'm
So-
sure that'll get you pretty far. I've always been a why kind of person. I'm pretty sure I was that kid that asked my parents why for everything, and my mom probably
Why?
got pretty annoyed. Yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate you, Evan, for joining in once again.
Yeah,
I feel like I threw a lot
absolutely.
of stuff at you today, but I mean, I think we got a lot of good stuff out of here. My goal is to kind of, I wanted to treat this episode as something that someone could watch and kind of be like, oh, I didn't think about that. I'll go look that up.
Yeah.
Or something. Or maybe there's a lot of clips we can get out of here and use for our social media, stuff like that. But I very much appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and this was the 22nd episode of Pilots Say
Sweet.
What. If you guys have any questions, whether it be about anything you heard in this
Yeah.
episode, something you've just been wanting to know and you're doing your research and you haven't gotten your answer yet, please put those questions in the comment section. We have CFIs, we have pilots, we have students on here all the time, every week, who can answer your questions. Give us a little bit to work with, and we'll get that question answered. Otherwise, like and subscribe. Go to Thrust Flight. Maybe give us a call if you have any specific questions for us. And we'll see you next week on the next episode of Pilots Say What.